What is up, wrestling fans? It is that time for us to talk all things pro wrestling. Call it right down the middle. That's right. It's time for this week's edition of 607 TWS, The Wrestling Show. And we are live on the Fanlight Zone YouTube and Twitch channels. Thank you so much for streaming with us if you're streaming us live. And thank you so much if you're watching the replay, because that makes a big difference too. I, of course, am your host, and I am the executive producer over at Fanlight Zone. My name is Rich. Joining me in the co-pilot's chair, as she does each and every week, she is the hunter of the Pokemons, because she's got to catch them all. She is the guru of cosplay, but most importantly, for this show right here, she is a pro grappling connoisseur. It is the first lady of Fanlight Zone, actually first lady of Fanlight Zone, period. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you the lovely Miss Sammy. How are you today?
You know, I'm still kind of sad. The champ is no longer here, but you're here and I'm here, and we're ready to talk all about it.
You can't see me. I can see you, but you can't see me.
You can't see me?
Hey, listen, that was the only time that The Rock was ever in that feud had any bit of whatever. But I digress. We're not getting into that rabbit hole right now. We are going to be, of course, talking about John Cena's last match and the event that surrounded it. We are going to be talking about the return of the devil. We've been calling this for a while. MJF is finally back. And we said, hey, Tony Khan, you need to bring him back. Guess what? I'd like to believe that he listened. Of course, also, we're going to talk about some indie roundup. The Nick Gage Invitational went down this past week. We do have a winner. And last but not least, we have a fun editorial like we like to end the show every week with. And this week, we're going to be talking about wrestling eras, because we got an end of an era in a way with the end of the John Cena era, because he transcended multiple eras. But before we get there, let's give a shout out to the place that puts up, that pays the bills, if you will, keeps the lights turned on around here. And of course, that is fanlightzone.com. Right above me, you have a QR code that'll take you over to fanlightzone.com. Check out the comic reviews, check out the wrestling blogs, check out everything we have to offer. More is to come as we continue to grow. Obviously, we are young, so we want to make sure that you guys and gals out there are helping support us over at fanlightzone.com. But more importantly than that, because you are here on the YouTube or Twitch channels, hey, go to fanlightzone.com. But also follow us on all the great social medias, because we do need some followers. And on top of that, most importantly for YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and hit that thumbs up to let the bosses know you want more pro wrestling and other content in general at Fanlight Zone YouTube channel and across the board. Like I said, just getting off. We haven't even been doing this for a full month. I do believe next week is the first full month of Fanlight Zone and fanlightzone.com. We are in episode 3 of 607 TWS, the return of the wrestling show. And we're starting to hit some strides. And big things are right around the corner. But that's enough about us. Let's talk about what everybody tuned in to talk about, and that is some pro grappling. And we're going to open it up with what went down this past Saturday. Saturday's main event just happened, and of course, it was the end of John Cena with John Cena's last match going down in this past Saturday's main event. Before we talk about that, though, I would like to talk about the event as a whole. Of course, let's talk about the opening contest of the evening. Was the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, your WWE Undisputed Champion, taking on the NXT Champion Obafemi. That match would end in a no contest when Drew McIntyre would get involved for no reason at all. And we're going to talk about John Cena in quite detail. And a lot of people, we're going to talk about the outrage. We're going to talk about how people were upset. We're going to give our opinions and thoughts and all that. But I think that the most upsetting thing to me that happened on that entire evening was the no contest throwout of Obafemi and Cody Rhodes. Obafemi was over. The crowd was loving them some Obafemi. They were having a nice solid match. Very good. Going back and forth. Crowd was really into it. And then like a wet fart in church, we get a no contest as Drew McIntyre slides in. And even better than all of that, Sammy. Even better than all of that. We got the stare down between Oba and Drew, and he puts Drew on his arse. But at the end of the day, you know what the internet's saying? They're not saying, hey, we want to see Obafemi versus Drew McIntyre. No, it instantly was Oba versus Brock. So I think your whole run-in was this big steamy pile of doo-doo. And I think that whole thing backfired because if your goal was to kind of set up something with Drew and Oba, nobody cares. They just saw Oba Femi and went, oh, we want to see him versus Brock Lesnar. So I just think it was a waste because even if Oba eats the pin, it doesn't hurt him. I just thought that there was, I think it was a cop-out. I wasn't a fan. That was the thing that outraged me the most. I know people are going to be like, oh my God, you weren't outraged by Cena as much? No, that outraged me most. What are your thoughts on this, Sammy?
It's disappointing. I guess it's an indicator that they do feel very highly, the organization on Obafemi, so they wanted to find a way to protect him. But like you said, a pinfall against the heavyweight champion doesn't really mean much of anything. And you can totally lean into that. He's the champion. He's the rookie. Like that's an easy story to tell. I guess this is just to remind the audience that they're going to stretch this feud with Cody Rhodes and Drew McIntyre all the way into Rumble because we really want more of it. I guess.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm with you. Next up, we had a pretty awesome match with Sol Ruca taking on Bayley. Sol Ruca gets the win here in a really classy way. I thought it was a great match. And I'm going to piggyback it off with the next match because I feel like we should just piggyback them together. And because of the young talent, because we can talk so much about it. Tag team match, Javon Evans and Leon Slater taking on the World Tag Team Champions, AJ Styles and Dragon Lee. Styles and Lee get the win. Once again, though, those two matches did exactly what the goal was. John Cena wanted to highlight the young talent, and I think the Obafemi match did too, with just little poo-poo on the ending. But
yes,
all I'm just going to say, because I know that Zarya was outside the ring, but all four of the performers who performed in the ring for this evening, I thought they crushed it and killed it and took it home. Your thoughts on the tag match and the women's match that went down on Cena's last match, Saturday night's main event?
I'll even lump in just one brief thing about the Cena match, Cena Gunther. This was one of the better shows that WWE has done this year. It really was. And for the exact reasons that Cena had said and we had said and other commentators had said as well. The young talent against these veterans and pushing them a little bit, which is what we saw in most of these matches, getting pushed a little bit, really worked well. I remember in the tag match, there was a moment where AJ Styles may have slipped. It may have been a spot. It looked more like some sort of an issue where he was going for a spot on the ropes. He slipped and fell. Boom. Guy went and covered him immediately. That's such a veteran move from a rookie. That was really good. It's highlighting how talented these guys are. They deserve this platform. And this was one of the better shows of the year.
Yeah, Leon Slater, giving him credit there. Like instantly acted upon it, went for the cover, 21 years old. And like intuitively, instinctively went for the cover. I forget to mention my favorite thing that I saw come out of Saturday Night's main event. Because like I said, we all know the WWE universe doesn't always pay attention to NXT. And coming out of it, there was a meme that went around where they were saying, and this is because we're a comic book outlet as well, they were saying that Obafemi is just absolute Swerve Strickland. If you are a fan of Absolute Batman, makes a million sense. I can now not unsee it. Originally, I'm not a fan of his little dance to the ring, but if you're saying absolute Swerve Strickland, I'm in. So we just need to get him his absolute version of Prince Nana, and I'm offering up R-Truth, and that brings me to the little fun segment. We had these three great matches, honestly, very good. Lots of talent shown there, in my opinion. And then we had a little bit of fun before the main event as The Miz came out upset that he didn't get to be a part of Cena's last match or the show. And that brings out R-Truth, who I'm glad we got to see on the show. And R-Truth basically says that The Miz stole somebody's spot. And of course, that person, as Miz says his name, he would appear Joe Hendry. So we got the team up I didn't think we needed, but I think we need more of Joe Hendry and R-Truth taking out The Miz in a fun segment before the main event. Nice little icebreaker before the emotional ride we're going to go on. Obviously, the entire evening from the pre-show up until that point is this. We know, it's all, even every match ended with the people saluting to the camera to John Cena. Perfect. I thought that was really nice. Mwah, chef's kiss, for all of that. But at the end of the day, I thought that this fun spot right before the emotions we're going to feel in the main event was perfectly placed. Sammy, your thoughts on the Joe Hendry R-Truth Miz segment?
Yeah, I think this was kind of needed on a show that was very, either it was Cena focused, but it was also very wrestling focused. So to have that bit of just fun there, and it really kind of highlights something that's missing on the main roster. And maybe we've talked about it before of trying to get a little bit more of that comedy in there. Maybe this is kind of in a way a passing of the torch moment as well from Truth to Joe Hendry, maybe kind of in a way. Hopefully, I mean, Joe Hendry, we know he's going to be main roster bound. He got the huge pop at Mania. He got a huge pop at Saturday Night's main event. So his time on NXT will not be long, and that's kind of needed on the main
It's
roster. He's
good.
someone that can work in the ring and he can work with anyone, and he's over. He'll sell a ton of
It's good.
merch, tons of merch.
Well, we're here. Main event time. John Cena's last match. That was what we built to all evening long. I mentioned it in passing, but the hour pre-show before the show over on YouTube for WWE did a great job. Everybody's emotional. CM Punk getting emotional. A lot of people, obviously John Cena meant a lot to a lot of people. They went in and they pulled on the heartstrings. They showed the Make-A-Wish. They showed, everything that you would encapsulates the greatness that is John Cena, legacy wise, sports entertainment wise, however you want to cut it. Gunther comes out to a sea of boos for the first time in a long time, and we're going to talk about it more in a minute. Coming into that building, usually Gunther gets a good reaction. He's not he wasn't an over heel, if you will, coming into the night, but because he's wrestling Cena, the crowd gives him the boos early on. We'll talk about more in a minute, but he gets the heat just because he's wrestling Cena. Cena comes out to the thunderous applause, off the charts applause for Cena. That crowd was going ballistic. When they see him come out, the run to the ring gets loud. In the ring, he's got him going. They're eating out of the palm of his hand. We get the great introductions, and then the match starts. And I thought they did a great job in this match. Arguably, if it's not Cena's best match of the farewell tour, it's his second best match, in my opinion. Easily.
Agreed. Yeah.
And a lot of that goes to Gunther. A lot of it goes to Cena, though. They worked a great pace. Gunther working that heel, steady, technical, keep it slow and ground and hard, and Cena speeding it up whenever he got into the driver's seat. And I thought that was a tale of two cities, and it was very nice. They told a beautiful story between the two. I mean, we got a little bit of Super Cena, we got a little bit of Super Gunther. And they met in the middle, and it was just a clash of the Titans. And for as much as we're going to talk about in a minute, I think before we talk about the ending and the finish, and we'll talk about the match, but I really want to get your take. That a match is going well story-wise and it has people invested when the last 10 to 15 minutes of this match is literally fighting over a rear naked choke or a sleeper, whatever you want to call it, but it was a rear naked choke. Like, think about it. The last 10 to 15 minutes of this match is fighting over what some people would have called a rest hold in the past. We understand it's not, because the rear naked choke will put you down. If you watch MMA, you understand that.
Yeah.
But think about how invested the crowd was of that spot. And it was. It's the last time. He's in it. He's out of it. There's there's the AAs. There's this and that. But it's all rotating around. Can Gunther put him down with the rear naked choke? I thought that spoke volumes for both men. That the crowd in-house and everybody at home is on the edge of their seats waiting to find out what happens. What did you think about that, Sammy?
I think this was a very important moment in wrestling, current wrestling today, just because most matches you see, everyone's lining up to do the big spots and the flippy dippy stuff, and not everyone can do the flippy dippy stuff. And to see people get so invested in a match that was very not a technical masterpiece in that manner, but just a very slow pace. Not everyone loves slow pace; they get distracted very easily. It was very methodical. It very was storyline driven, and everyone got their stuff in. But we are talking about two guys that don't have a ton of stuff. Gunther chops you, and he'll put you in holds. Cena will do the 5 moves of doom, maybe a 6th one he adds in, but like And that still can capture people's attentions, people's hearts and emotions. And that's very important because the flippy dippy stuff will get you to the main event, but you have to be able to work and own a crowd to stay in the main event, especially someone like John Cena who stayed there for 20 years.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So here's the thing. Before I bring up the finish, I will say Cena broke out everything with the exception of the slingshot stunner. That's the only thing that he didn't break out. He went to the top rope. He did the leg drop from the top. He broke out everything, giving everybody the final. And what touched my heart is that final "You Can't See Me." And yes, I guess you telegraph it. It makes it a little too smart for some people. But it was that moment that we all got to be like, he's like, this is the last time. And as cheesy as that sounded when he did it, like I thought that was something for the fans in the arena more than anybody, because that was the loudest "You Can't See Me" I have ever heard.
Yeah, probably
and that was the whole
ever.
point. One last time, let's do "You Can't See Me," and I thought that was what this is what the night was about. So now let's get to the finish, because obviously a lot of armchair quarterbacks talking about the finish, and we're going to do it too. You're going to be surprised on the take. Rear naked chokes locked in. Cena fights. We get Super Cena a couple times. We get the arm drop. By the way, I was a huge fan of that. I was going to be mad if they didn't do the arm drop. I'm glad they did the 3 arm drops, because then we get the John Cena symbol, the okay, if you will, firing back up. But then Gunther gets the hooks in. It's in deep. Cena knows he can't get out. So Cena smiles and taps. Not a frantic tap, not a painful tap, a light tap. I know some people are judging this on different levels. My takeaway here is, and I think Shayna Baszler said it best, what if I told you that sometimes when you tap, you're not giving up? Sometimes you just know it's checkmate. It's over. And there was 2 things that represented. I, for one, and I'm going to go into the greater detail here in a second after I pass it to you, but I, for one, was at first like, why? But after thinking about it, I went, oh, he was clocking out. It's not giving up. His job is over. We punch, all of us work, right? You punch in, you punch out. For 23 years, John Cena punched in. He punched out. And that smile was to show you it wasn't giving up. The smile was to show you, I'm happy with where I'm at. I can't get out of this move. My fight is over. Just like, and I know people, the first thing people are rebuttaling that with is, oh, it's not MMA, it's wrestling. Wrestling's not real. But you're supposed to suspend belief, right? And if it was an MMA fight, an MMA fighter would have done the exact same thing. Once the hooks are in, if you're smart, you just go, I'm done. Because you avoid injury, the better man's gotcha, you can't get out. So I didn't look at it as he gave up ever. I looked at it for what it was good for. Think about it. What did it do? That crowd went silent, and then that crowd booed. Now Gunther is the biggest heel in professional wrestling.
Finally.
And here's the thing. If Cena passes out, he's not. If Cena passes out, that crowd claps. They golf clap for Gunther beating Cena. He comes out on Raw, even if he says, I made him pass out. That crowd goes, half the crowd is in it. No. That night he got escorted out. We saw the footage. Got escorted out because the crowd was trying to get to him. On Monday Night Raw, that crowd was not there to clap for Gunther. And the more Gunther said that I made John Cena give up, the louder that crowd got. This was giving credit due, because first of all, for anybody who thinks I'm defending Triple H, absolutely not, because I still think that creative bankruptcy is the thing. This is a John Cena call. I'll put $110 million that this was a John Cena call. And John Cena knew that by doing a little, he was going to make a star, and he did. Not saying that Gunther wasn't a star already, but he wasn't. Let's be honest, since the title belt came off of him, kind of a lackluster performance this past year. Now he's the biggest heel in the business. All because of one tap. I feel like That's pretty good. What's your thoughts? Because I have more to say, but I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the way the match ended, you know, you and I, we and others, some of the other members of Family Zone, you know, we talked about the different ways this match can end, and and ultimately, I'm happy with the way it ended. If you don't, I guess you could gripe a little bit about John Cena's, you know, facial expressions, I guess. But like you said, it does paint a story of I'm done. There's nothing else I can do here. This is it. Even if I'm able to get out of this, even if I'm able to win this, I still leave today. You know, it just so I think the reaction afterwards is more what would like to focus on. You know, when you're going into a match, you yourself, you used to book matches, you used to, you know, help with planning of matches and everything. At the end of the day, who was involved in this room? Do you really think that whole creative board of people were involved in that room? No, it was John Cena, it was Gunther, and it may be somebody else in terms of, you know, an agent, like a Michael Hayes or something. That's it.
Probably Michael Hayes.
And it,
Probably Michael Hayes.
right, right. And then at the end of the day, in the ring, you had Gunther, who at this point, you know, he's in his mid to late 30s. He's a veteran, and you have John Cena, the biggest veteran in the business. They can do whatever they want. Who's going to tell them no? What are they going to come in and say, "Oh, we're going to ring the bell" or whatever? No, you're in the ring. You own the show. They're not going to do anything. So I think they were able to do exactly what they wanted to do, and I'm very happy that they did. You and I have talked at length on this show about the lack of heels in wrestling, and we finally have one. And I hope WWE rides that all the way, not to this year's WrestleMania, next year's WrestleMania. I hope Gunther doesn't win again until next WrestleMania. I hope he retires AJ Styles. I hope he retires Chris Jericho. I hope he goes under. He's retired two veterans, retire two more, and go into next year's, not next year's, the following year's WrestleMania as the biggest heel ever. Go for it. I think it'd be great.
Oh, yeah.
We need it.
I think that's great. So I'm glad you touched upon that because from a booking standpoint, because the one thing that I've heard people caca and poo-poo on all week, and I mean, it's starting to die down a little bit, but it's still there, was the fact of this time-honored tradition. I don't want to hear about the time-honored tradition of you go out on your back. Well, I'm going to tell you why that's a time-honored tradition, because I think a lot of people miss the point. So, and this is not shots at anybody, because if Cena wins this match, I'm fine with it because he's earned it. Just the same way I was fine with Sting winning this match. But it's going to bring me to a point. This is not a shot at it. But here's what I'm going to say. When Sting won his final match, what story did that build after? Who did that make? The answer is nobody. Because where do you go? The guy that won is now retired. And that is why the time-honored tradition is for guys to go out on their back. And the reason why is because the whole thought process is that if you are loved enough, that you are in a position that you are going to be in this final match that is so advertised. And that is, think about it, the final match for a wrestler, man or woman, is a thing of you earned it. Because everybody has their final match, but not everybody's final match gets all the pomp and circumstance.
That's
only the biggest names. Only the biggest names get the pomp and circumstance. And the bigger the name, the bigger the pomp and circumstance, right? And that's the whole thing. So when you're going out, the whole thing is, can we put somebody over? That's going to carry the momentum, hopefully, through. Now, mind you, booking could destroy that. Me and you both know that. But in that moment, Gunther, who, yes, he's in his late 30s, but he's in the prime of his career. Are you telling me he's not in the prime of his career? By the way, for all those people who think he's older, do you realize that most of the guys that you cheer for, no matter what channel, their primes, they were in their mid to late 30s? That is usually a wrestler's prime of their career. Kenny Omega, when he was on top of the world, was in his mid 30s. How do I know? We're the same age, and I remember how old I was when that was all going down. So was an Okada. So now they're both in their 40s. It is what it is. Am I saying that Okada and Omega can't go? Oh, they absolutely can go. They can run circles around guys. You think that Kenny Omega at almost 43 can't wrestle? That's weird, right? Just like AJ Styles is damn near 50. He can still go. CM Punk still goes. So guys' careers are a lot longer now. You know, it's just the bottom line of it. You know, even though we like to pick on Chris Jericho can still go. And he's in his mid-50s. We just talked about Sting. Sting had a very entertaining match at 60 plus years old. You know what I mean? For his final match. So I'm not saying that this ageism thing is weird to me, because the internet used to love Gunther, and all of a sudden, because of this, they don't no longer love Gunther. He's too old. He can't wrestle. He can't this. He can't that. Come on, guys. You're just sour grapes. But you would have been sour grapes either way. They would have been sour grapes if Cena won. They would have been sour grapes if Cena passed out. They would have been sour grapes if anything happened. It didn't matter. And that's the bottom line of it.
Because they made a heel. That time-honored tradition of going out on your back or whatever, that's really an old territory days thing. Most guys nowadays, you don't really get to determine what your last match is. Can you name Hulk Hogan's last match? Do you know what it was?
I don't know, because he wrestled way past his shelf life.
Yes.
If you think about it, it's the same with Ric Flair.
And that's part of the problem. Hulk Hogan's last match was a tag match on an Australian tour in TNA.
Yeah, exactly. But most guys,
a nothing match. Like you never really know. And for all we know, I truly want to believe, John Cena, that this is it. But is it? Stone Cold Steve Austin came out of retirement how many years later, right? Like
But Steve Austin, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Steve Austin came back to have a last match, because Steve Austin never got to have a true last match. So, and the main event of WrestleMania last match. No, which is but here's the difference. Once again, it was but let's be honest, it was barely a match. Not saying anything against him and Kevin Owens. They went out there and they entertained the crap out of the crowd, right? Because they fought everywhere. It was a fight. That was what it was. And that's what Steve Austin does, right? It is what it is. Once again, though, you were in there with somebody you didn't have to make. My point of the matter still stands, that Gunther came in lukewarm at best. People clapping for him, cheering for him a little bit, not really a heel, really kind of lost direction after he lost the world title, mostly due to booking, not due to himself, right? And now all of a sudden he is the biggest heel in wrestling. So I think mission accomplished. I think that the ends justify the means. After I got to sit on it, you can use any analogy you want. You want to use the Obi-Wan Kenobi analogy, because he smiled just like Obi does when he gives himself up to Vader, and that's what sparks Luke to get revenge. That is if you want to go with that analogy. If you want to go with the checkmate analogy, no matter how you check it out, I just thought it was weird that people instantly went, oh well, the guy who said never give up gave up. No, he tapped out, and he tapped out classily. And I guess it's just because I watch combat sports, right? And I don't care if you want to say that wrestling is scripted and not real, or whatever you want to use for wrestling. At the end of the day, it's still a combat sport. So you have to borrow things from other combat sports. And that is normal for us fans of MMA, to see somebody just tap out when they know they're got. He got. See, if it's a frantic tap or I'm in pain, that's an I'm in pain tap. When you that's I'm in pain. Smacking on the mat. That's I'm in pain. When you smile, whether you liked it or not, and give the little it's over, that's not giving up. That's just you got me. You got me. And that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I want to take a moment and talk about the aftermath of everything, though. Mm-hmm. I think that's important to talk about as well.
I do want to talk about that as well. I just wanted to get that first part out of the way.
Yeah, so after the tap out, Cena, because he didn't pass out, he wasn't all beat up. He was able to, have his moment in the ring. Gunther left to a sea of boos, and then we saw a really touching moment where basically the entire locker room came out. Most of the staff were out there. Everyone was out there, and I think that was an incredibly beautiful thing. What I thought was odd, though, I didn't love the video package that they put together and aired. I think the video package that they put online earlier in the weekend was way
one that
better
they showed earlier with everybody with the Cena.
Yeah, that one was much nicer, way cleaner, a lot more fun. John Cena didn't really say anything. I thought that was a little interesting, but I guess that kind of makes sense for the guy who, always talked. To just leave in silence was kind of nice. And he's going to get a huge, WrestleMania / Hall of Fame moment. So that'll be his opportunity to talk as long as he wants. So I guess the last real piece of the puzzle here to talk about is the booing. And I would love to believe that the audience is booing, especially at Triple H, not because of this match in particular, but Cena was doing the podcast, the talk show tour, and some things were said that could really irritate fans like us who pay more attention to the product, and us in general, and other commentators here have talked and used the word creatively bankrupt. And I'd really like to hope that that sea of booze and even AEW chants was really more a reflection on, like,
Oh, was that
you
Triple H?
didn't. It's at Triple H, but I really hope it's more focused on the fact that it's like, this year has not been good. You didn't really do any of this well, and you haven't been doing a lot of other things well, and you need to clean things up here. I really hope that's more of what it was, but I don't know if the wrestling audience would be that in tune with it as we are.
I think that's exactly what it was. I just think it was bad timing. I was okay with them booing Triple H when he came out to do the post show and chanting the F word at him and everything else, right? I was okay with I 110%. My only problem with the booing when they did it, and it was all directed, and I know none of it was directed at John. The crowd was very into John. But the only thing with booing when he came to ringside and came up and shook John's hand and everything was that this is Cena's moment. This is his final moment. We're celebrating a final moment. Wait until it's over. Like, I get telling him you're pissed off. I understand that. Trust me. I don't wash anything that happened from Triple H by saying this. None of what I said about liking the finish has anything to do with Triple H, because I believe he had nothing to do with the finish. I honestly think that this is an 110% John Cena call and was facilitated and defended by Michael P.S. Hayes. And I think both of them are right. We'll come to find out eventually, but I bet you that that's exactly what happened. And that's why I'm fine with it, because that's the way that Cena would want to go. Why would Cena ever want to go? Cena's famous for doing an interview with Sam Roberts that I got reintroduced to from our good friend Walt. And it was after the Brock Lesnar SummerSlam squash. Remember when Brock squashed him at SummerSlam all those years back? It was after Taker also took the streak from Taker at Mania. Brock did.
Yep.
So Cena did an interview with Sam Roberts. I'm paraphrasing, and he said to Sam, like, Brock came to me and we were chatting, and Brock said that him and Stone Cold were talking, and they were trying to figure out a way that the finish for him and Cena, knowing that they were having this big match at SummerSlam, would protect, where the business was. And then Cena offering up, let's do a squash. You can steamroll me. Why? Because if we have a 50-50 match after you took the Taker's streak, that does nothing. That poo-poos all over Taker's streak, and it does nothing for me. So why would we have a 50-50 match at this point in juncture? You should come out and steamroll me. Just dominate me. It's going to shock the world. People are going to be whatever. They're going to think you're burying me. It is what it is. And that's smart. That's John Cena, always about business. What did we hear coming into this final night? Is Cena always did what was right for business, no matter what. Even if it didn't make him look the best, even if it wasn't, the best thing for the, it didn't matter. If it was best for business, Cena just did it. He was a loyal troop the entirety of the time. And that is what his legacy is. His legacy to me is all the wonderful things he did in his Make-A-Wishes and making people feel special. And the fact that when you look at the guys who were in his spot, first of all, he was in the top spot longer than anybody in the history of the business. Anybody. Yep. The driver's seat. Most guys' careers in the top spot is 5 years, if that. You're lucky if you get 5. Steve Austin's was like 5. The Rock's was like 5. And I'm not talking about him coming back and getting cheered. I'm talking about their actual time on top of the business was less than 5 years. Whereas John Cena actively sat on top for at least 15 out of his 23-year career. And you could argue to the day he left, he was still a top player. But not in the sense that, he was at one time. He's obviously been surpassed by the big dog at this point in the current structure. And that's
a lot of that is just and a lot of that's just because he's started to move away from it. If he had stuck around,
right. Absolutely. Well, the whole goal was to move Roman past him. I remember that was one of the promos was John Cena cut on him once, where he said, "I want you to be the top guy, but I have to keep coming back because you can't get over." It was perfect, right? I digress. I did say that I wanted to see Roman out there. After seeing the event, I went, you know what? They did the best thing because Roman hijacks the moment. If Roman comes out, the music hits, he comes out, the ones go up, he's hijacked the moment. And so it was the best thing to actually keep Roman away.
What I did find interesting is a lack of Randy Orton around here. I don't
He
remember
was
seeing him
in.
or in the videos.
They did a video package in the early on. He did sue his personal message. He was on WWE Business in Saudi Arabia because he
Hmm.
was at Mr. Beast World with Alexa Bliss, Tiffany Stratton, and a couple other people. So he was doing PR work for the beautiful, wonderful, progressive Saudi Arabia, right? Yeah, we know how much everybody loves that. I'm not even going to
Wow.
dive into it. I'm going to
Well, I do
right
like
now.
one thing from this moment that I really take away from it that I thought was really special was that, before the match started, Cena was going around and he was, shaking hands, kissing babies with everyone, and including current or released and no longer with the company talent, including Kevin Owens, who was sitting with
Well, Kevin Owens not
Elias.
released. Kevin Owens is
No, but he was
injured.
sitting with Elias. So I guess
Yes.
those two
Oh,
have
oh
mended.
no, no, no,
So I
no,
guess
no,
they've
no, no,
mended
no.
fences,
No, no, no. He was not sitting with Elias. He was sitting with Ezekiel. It's obvious it was Ezekiel. Obvious. Sami Zayn was
I
also there.
guess.
I was happy that Kevin
Yeah.
Owens was there because him and John Cena are real good friends. Obviously, a big debt of gratitude. Sami Zayn, big debt of gratitude. It was cool that they got to be front row. Trish Stratus made a lot of sense. Eve Torres made a lot of sense. The one that didn't make a lot of sense, but I was happy he was there, and I wish he would have gone into business for himself. I kept telling Ken M to put it out on all the socials. Was Haku was in the building, so that match could have turned any time. Gunther would have gotten beat up if Haku got in that ring. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
There's no group of people that takes out Haku. So there was the secret weapon. But no, I agree. I thought it was very cool to see Elias there. I thought it was really cool to see Kevin Owens there. I just wanted people not to think that you thought that he's been released. He hasn't. He's out with injury.
Yeah.
And then because you never know, people like to make things up. And then I want to give one more shout out before we do it. I really did like the belt spot with Cody and Punk, and especially because it ties in because Punk before the show they had asked him his feelings on the pre-show. They had asked him what he was thinking about, and he was like, "I could speak for hours and not get tired about putting over John Cena, so I'm going to try to putting it up." And basically, how he boiled it down is that he needed to be there. He said he wouldn't have missed it for the world. There's nothing that would have made him miss this night, because all he wants to do is give him a hug one final time and tell him he loved him. And you got that moment. He came out and surprised John because I don't think John knew that they were going to do that. You could tell John's a little too humble, which is kind of odd, but he is. That's who he is. And they put the belts on him. He didn't want them. And Punk kind of told him, no, I'm paying it forward. What he was talking about is at one point in Juncture, when Hogan was finishing up in WWE, Cena had put the belt on Hogan. And so kind of that was, hey, we're paying it forward that we see myself and Cody, which came up in interviews, himself and Cody wouldn't be where we are today if it was not for you. So here we are honoring you with the championships because we are champions because of you. So therefore, we are honoring you with those belts. And that was a pretty cool moment to see. And then they took a knee, so you had the two title holders take a knee. And I thought it was good. That was a beautiful moment. You got the cameras caught the right time, and the audio caught the right time of Punk telling him he loved him, and John saying I love you, back, and saying he loved Cody, and it was a nice moment between two guys who arguably wouldn't be where they are today without John Cena, and they're top guys, like mega top, I mean, like I said, the only reason I'm glad that Roman wasn't there, I'm sure there was a nice talk with him and Roman in private. I'm glad he wasn't there because it would have outshined the moment. Quite frankly, even if it was to come pay, and acknowledge Cena, the crowd is still good. It's Roman Reigns at this point in juncture. Roman is as big as John Cena ever was when he was on top. And so you can't have too many top guys out there. You know what I mean? The Rock, I think everybody would have just gotten the douche chills. That's why they left him be. Then we could have seen Punk, give him the goosebumps. But he made a very nice video. Shout outs to that. I agree with you. I think the video package they showed at the end, not my favorite. I like the video package that they did with everybody doing either the "You Can't See Me," the salute, or had the little paper things
Signs,
that thank you, John, hustle loyal to. Everybody had different signs, and I can see you. Brock Lesnar with the "I can see you." It was nice. I thought that it was. I thought it was a very nice send off overall. I thought that they did a good job as far as that. And you're right. I bet this was the best PLE of the year, and it wasn't even a PLE.
Yeah,
it really was.
Yeah,
All the way across. Well, we took a lot of time because I think that was worth talking about, obviously John Cena, but we do need to move on. There's a few other things we want to talk about before we got out of here today. And of course, the big one. Let's go over to AEW. We've been saying it for a while, Sammy. We've been saying that, first of all, we've been giving them their flowers and saying that they've had a hell of a finish of 2025 thus far. And it looks good for 2026. But we said there's some things. Obviously, Will Ospreay's out injured. Swerve Strickland, the franchise, had come back. Okay, we're really gearing up. But there's one person missing. It's a big key to success in AEW. And I knew he was filming movies, but it was like, hey, you got to call him in. It's like the reliever. And guess what? They didn't disappoint. That's right. The devil has returned. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, MJF, is back in AEW in a big way, by the way, because we got the signing for the three-way dance at World's End for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So it'll be Samoa Joe defending against Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page in a triple threat. Contracts are signed. Tony Schiavone's doing the finish up, saying, hey, here's your main event. I love when Schiavone is in charge of those things because it's good. I love Tony Schiavone, legendary, right?
Yes,
but
legendary.
The lights go out, and the whole crowd knew when the lights went out, it wasn't going to be one of those surprises you didn't know. They were all waiting, and we got it. We got better than you. And here he came. MJF comes to the ring, and we remember he has a contract to execute whatever he wants to get a shot at the AEW World Championship. He pulls the contract out. He signs the contract. He hands it to Tony Schiavone and says, this is no longer a three-way dance. It is a four-way for the AEW World Championship. And then he cuts an MJF promo, and boy, have we been missing those on air. Goes right after Hangman Adam Page. Lets him know how much he still doesn't like the Cowboy. And he's joining this match just so he can stick it to him. Because not only is he going to beat him, but he's going to beat two of his biggest rivals on his way to regain his AEW World Championship. Then he turns his attention to Samoa Joe. And by the way, I love the body language here. MJF went right in his face. Joe kind of goes, and then he makes fun of him for, you're going to do the big guy thing. And Swerve Strickland jumps in, and we get the best line of the night. As basically he says, hey, spit those bars, Swerve. You remind me of another, musical act. He wears chains. And he calls himself a mogul. And he puts on too much baby oil, just like you. It's on the tip of my tongue. Yes, that's right, P. Diddy. I thought it was great. I'm like, he's in the moment, ends it out strong as MJF does with I'm gonna walk out champion. Why? Because I'm Maxwell Jacob Friedman and I'm better than you. And across the crowd yells, you know it. I thought this is exactly the shot in the arm at the end of the year without going and bringing somebody in who nobody would care about. I thought this was what they needed. Sammy, am I lying? Did AEW just hit a home run with the return of MJF?
AEW definitely hit a home run with the Return of MJF, and there's a lot of storyline here, which is crazy to talk about AEW and storyline. But he's worked with Strickland, he's worked with Hangman, and let's not forget Samoa Joe beat him for the belt once upon a time. So there's a lot of storyline potential here, and like you said, it's a huge shot in the arm for AEW, who's been hurting. Some of their top stars have been, on the shelf this year due to some unfortunate injuries. And, we saw Bryan Danielson retire. Kenny Omega's had to take a step back for how much in-ring work he does. So Will Ospreay's been out. Swerve Strickland was out. He's been out. So the pieces are falling into place at the right time because whether you like it or not, Saturday night, the crowd was chanting your name, AEW, at a WWE event. We talked all at length about that, but at the end of the day, that happened. So the momentum could be finally swinging the right way. AEW is clicking the right buttons now, and we'll see what happens at this final event of the year, and see if MJF can get his belt back or where it goes from here.
I agree with you, and I'm waiting bated breath. Hopefully, they can take advantage of this momentum. Now the ball is completely in Tony Khan and AEW's court. They've been handed it. They just have to go execute it, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that they do, because like I said, it's stronger for all wrestling fans if everybody's doing well. All right. We're going to move real quick into a quick indie roundup because we're only going to talk about one thing, and we can't show the graphics here. So we got the Nick Gage Invitational, GCW, presenting Nick Gage Invitational number 9 from Orlando, Florida, this past Saturday as well. And let's go over some results real quick, including the winner. I want to point out, when I say deathmatch wrestling is an acquired taste, this is what I mean, because we had things like the first round. We had a regular death, we had a regular death match. Or sorry, the Invitational 10. I keep forgetting the NGI makes it look like 9, but it was 10. We had a regular death match. Bear Bronson defeated Slade. But then we had in the next first round match a Taipei death match where Jack Harrop defeated Drew Parker. Then we had a barbed wire massacre death match, first round match, where Otis Kogar would defeat the Bev. And then the final first round match was a ladders and light tubes death match where Mr. Danger would defeat Little Sicko. We got Pero versus defeating Ray Maddox in a non-tournament match before getting back into the tournament. In your 2 semifinals matches, one, Bear Bronson would defeat Jack Harrop in a Doors of Death match. And then Otis Kogar would defeat Mr. Danger in the other semifinal match in a Panes of Glass death match. And then we would get the main event in a exposed boards, light tubes, panes of glass, and barbed wire death match where Bear Bronson would defeat Otis Kogar to become the winner of the Nick Gage Invitational number 10. So Bear Bronson, who has found a resurgence as a deathmatch wrestler, is your NGI winner. I know death matches aren't for everybody, Miss Sammy, but got to give big kudos to Bear Bronson, huh?
Death matches aren't for everyone, and as you ran through that, and as the show ran through the night, I mean, each one progressively got a little crazier, a little crazier, a little crazier, and that's kind of what you expect of any wrestling show, including a deathmatch show. Everyone is meant to pass the baton and go out there and try and eclipse the previous match, and this show definitely had that. And Bear Bronson, why not? Why not?
Absolutely. And I'm going to put that QR code up because once again, this week we're keeping it a little light because we had a long segment with the final Cena, but hit us up on the contact you page at fanlightzone.com if you want something highlighted in the indie roundup. We want to hear from independent wrestling companies, independent wrestlers, promoters. Hit us up if you want us to plug a show or whatever. We are here. We love pro wrestling. We love supporting independent pro wrestling. We want you guys to watch it. Big shout outs. These are not sponsors, but big shout outs to Triller TV and Triller TV Plus, and of course, Independent Wrestling.tv, IWTV, for putting more independent wrestling out there. And of course, right here on YouTube, you can find a lot of great companies that do shows on YouTube. So every weekend, keep your eye out for some pro wrestling. And here's the bigger thing. Look for your local indie feds. There's local indie feds all over the place. Go ahead and hit them up. It will be a goal of Fanlight Zone. I know I've talked to Ken M about it. As we grow, we want to kind of get a directory together, and that's where that comes in. So if you have a wrestling promotion you want us to spotlight, let us know, because we're even going to have a place on our website to spotlight so people can find independent pro wrestling wherever it is. And we're going to keep growing this and making it bigger. And as it gets bigger, who knows, maybe spinoffs and all that happy stuff. But definitely want to throw that out there as we do each and every week. All right, we're going into the main event segment, little editorial. Let's have some fun. John Cena retires. Last match. He is a man of many eras. He went through the Ruthless Aggression era, into the PG era, into, I don't know what you want to call the dying days of the VKM era, but we'll call it that. Now into the Triple H, the Paul Levesque era, right? Are we still in the Paul Levesque era? I think we're about to be in the Saudi Arabian era.
We're into the big money. We're into the big money Scrooge McDuck era, which is crazy to think we had Vince KM in charge, right? Now we're in that. But hey,
remember what Mark Shapiro said? Vince didn't go hard enough because he still wanted to keep family pricing. We don't got that issue here. So when you're making one of the biggest heels in life, not so heelish. I'm not saying they made him a baby face. They just took some of the off. That's pretty bad. Anyways, I digress. I joke, I kid. I really mean every word of what I just said. But we were talking era. Now, mind you, I want to preface before I put the graphic up. I would put 2 eras up because it was fun. They had fun graphics. But this encompasses all eras of pro wrestling. The golden era, which is I heard somebody was trying to call this era the golden era. Not so much. The golden era of wrestling was the 80s into the 90s. Then you had the new generation. Before that, you had the territory era. I call that pre-WrestleMania era. But here we go. We are going to have a talk in chat, super chat. You can join along. We got favorite eras in wrestling. Now, mind you, I didn't pick WWE. But if somebody wants to argue their favorite Crockett Promotions era or WCW era, NWO era, yeah, that was an era. ECW, I'm going to kind of leave out because ECW was a whole thing.
ECW was an era.
Listen, you stop it. There would be no Attitude Era without.
No,
ECW.
I'm saying just ECW in general is its own era. Like it was.
Oh yeah. Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And I'm leaving it off the list because it would be me. That's one thing me and Tony Khan have in common. We love ECW. It's a big thing. But anyways, we're about the same age too, so that makes a lot of sense. Actually, we're the exact same age. Kudos to Tony Khan. I can't call him Uncle Tony because we're the same age. So with that being said, Sabby, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat first. What is your favorite? Now you can say more than one, but what is your overall favorite? Give some honorable mentions, whatever you want to do of pro wrestling.
See, it's tough because my honest favorite era is this weird time in between the new generation and the Attitude Era. And it's like right at the infancy of the Attitude Era. Yeah, that's when you had the Brett and Shawn stuff. That's some of my favorite stuff that I grew up and I loved. And it's a little bit Attitude, but it's a little bit new generation. So like, because if you think about it, the rest of the stuff around that time, not a lot of good there. There's really not. It's really just Brett and Shawn and then the rest of the crew.
What do you mean? Duke the Dumpster Drosy didn't move it?
No, not really at all.
How about the Goon?
But
how about the Goon?
I do like the Goon. Shout out to the Goon. Come on the show. Anyway, but you have to remember at that point in wrestling, ECW was really starting to do a lot of things. WCW was starting to turn things around. So it was a really interesting part of wrestling history because the business was really starting to get very hot and get a lot of attention. And out of all of them, WWE is running, or WWF at the time, is doing this crazy angle with Brett and Shawn, and who truly hated each other. We've all seen all the YouTube videos of everyone that worked there at the time talking about how these two hated each other. And it really told a fun story. And then led into the Attitude Era, which is beloved by so many, and the NWO era, which is beloved by so many. So that's my favorite time. Attitude Era stuff is fun. There's a lot of highs in there, but a lot of those highs are all focused on the top of the card. If you go down that card, it gets a little suspect. I do remember Val Venus, choppy. Yeah. Which is funny. It's iconic, but it's still like, and when you go to beloved wrestling, that's where you start to see that ECW's very hardcore, very over the top, flippy dippy style really start to get a hold on wrestling. We love those ladder matches with the Hardy Boys and Edge and Christian, but that Daredevil style really started to take a hold on the mainstream audience, and we still see that carry through to today. And that's not necessarily the best thing for wrestling when everyone's doing the same thing, whereas in that time period you did have a lot of people doing different things. So that's my favorite time. It's a little bit of a weird time period. It's a little pre-Attitude, a little not so new generation. But what about you, Rich?
This one's a real easy one, and it shocks a lot of people whenever I talk about it, but I'm a big Ruthless Aggression era guy. And the reason why is because some of the best matches came out of Ruthless Aggression. And I'm a big wrestling fan. It was a time where you could also call it the Paul Heyman effect of WWE. This is post ECW, so post Attitude, post ECW. Paul Heyman is the head writer of SmackDown. And because he's pushing the envelope, Raw has to pick it up as well. This is the era that gave us like the legendary, like you had the top of the card at this time. Stone Cold's on his way out and leaving. Right. Rock is on his way out and leaving. Right. And you have to fill the gap. So what do they do over on SmackDown in particular? They fill this gap with Eddie Guerrero. And I'm going to mention him even though,
the other guy.
Who should not be renamed, but Chris Benoit. and Edge. That was really where Edge became a singles guy. And that would, later on become the rated R superstar. Randy Orton was over on Raw, but we were getting the birth of the Legend Killer. We're getting Batista. This is the original run of Brock Lesnar, which was only 2 years, by the way, for most people who forget. His original run was 2 years long, legitimately 2 years. But he made such an impact in that 2 years. You're getting, in that era, you have Kurt Angle as one of the top guys. Kurt Angle's going out there and having these 5-star matches. I don't care what Dave Meltzer said, because he never gave Kurt Angle a 5-star match, ridiculous as that sounds. He's having 5-star matches with Benoit, with Guerrero. It's a phenomenal time to watch wrestling. It was the last era where we could really talk about tag wrestling being great. The Dudley Boys were still going.
You big Billy and Chuck fan?
Listen, hey, Billy and Chuck was entertaining for what it was. You got to admit, 3-minute warning would come in at some point. You know what I mean? But you know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of things in there, and of course, John Cena. Like, this is the birth of Dr. Thugonomics, John Cena, ruthless aggression into Dr. Thugonomics. I'm about to lose my job. Gets it saved because he was rapping on the bus, and Stephanie McMahon's like, "Can you do that on air?" He's like, "Sure." He goes out there, and the rest is history. We get what we got and saw, John Cena go, but there was so many good things that happened. I'm not crapping on any other era, because I have a lot of, as much as I pick on the Attitude for having a lot of bad wrestling, because it did, it was still like an exciting time. It was, Crash TV. Even before that, I like that weird era you were talking about. That's not quite an era, it's in between, because there were some great matches there. The Shawn and Brett feud was great. It was like the weird era where you were getting out of this cartoony world, going into a real world, but at the same time, you had some pretty good matches going on. I always have love in my heart for the golden era in the 80s. That's the era that brought me in. I was born in the 80s. Big Macho Man Randy Savage fan. Him and Rick Steamboat. I was too young to remember why, but come on. That WrestleMania 3 match lives on in infamy forever and ever. Whether you like him or not, wrestling isn't where it is today if we didn't have Hulkamania at that point. So it is what it is. And the Ultimate Warrior, once again, maybe not the greatest of wrestling. You go, and on the flip side of that, you still had everything riding high with Crockett becoming WCW eventually, but coming off of, Starrcade, the original Starrcade, and everything else with Ric Flair. And I mean, there's a lot of just great times. Like, my lifetime in wrestling, there's been some down times. Post Ruthless Aggression, when we got into PG era, it was rough. It was rough.
Really rough.
New Generation was rough. New Generation was rough. There was some good match. Not saying there wasn't some terrible matches. We had the Iron Man match between Brett and Shawn. That's some New Generation era match. There were some good matches, but it was rough. Wrestling really didn't kick into gear again until NWO came on the scene in WCW. That's when wrestling became cool, honestly, and that led us right into Attitude Era. And listen, ECW is the conduit for both. We're going to eventually do a whole time of just talking about how ECW sparked not just the Attitude Era, but also the NWO era of WCW. Very much.
Well, if you think about it, ECW shaped a generation of wrestling, through that Attitude Era and NWO. But realistically, Paul Heyman has shaped multiple generations of wrestling, and that's a topic for another day as well. Is everyone always wants to talk about who's the best Paul Heyman guy. That's a tough list when you start thinking about it. Everyone he's been associated with ever.
So the first real Paul Heyman guy would be Bam Bam Bigelow. For those of you who didn't know, got him on independent shows, which got him signed. That was back in the 80s. Then the next guy right behind him, Mark Calloway, The Undertaker. How he got signed to WWE. Yeah, so he's a Paul Heyman guy. And then you go through, and like I said, that's why I gave him his flowers for Ruthless Aggression. I think Ruthless Aggression is so good because it was a Paul Heyman era. Paul Heyman being the head writer of SmackDown and pushing the envelope on SmackDown made them push the envelope on Raw. And because of which we had some great wrestling. SmackDown was destination television, but Raw had to step up the game, so we got better characters on Raw. That's when we had Evolution running wild, and that was a good storyline where you could intertwine a lot of people. And there was some great stuff going on. There was some stuff too, but you go over to SmackDown side.
The beginning of that era, Raw really struggled. It was a barren show. You had Evolution over there, but you just. Yeah, and you just had the reign of Triple H that just went on for so long. Yeah, and ultimately just to know that it was to put over Batista and Randy, but it was like, oh, it was painful for a little while.
Randy wasn't ready to be put over, Batista was. And I mean, that's how it was. Now, granted, now both have become Hall of Famers, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, they haven't got, neither man has entered in yet. The only reason Batista's not in, though, is because he wants to give his speech and he just hasn't had time. Literally every year, it's like, it's just a matter of time because he's really big on, I want to be there and I don't want to speak. And I don't blame him. That's awesome. I hope it comes sooner than later. He gets some time, but hey, it's not a bad thing the man's busy because he's a hell of a movie star. Like I always love it.
So I guess we're both in agreement that the PG era is kind of the worst one.
It's not in that in the reality era. Ooh.
Oh yeah, that was bad too. Ooh, that was really rough. Those were some dark days.
New Generation was not as bad as those, but not good either. Thankfully, New Generation had some. There were some shining moments in New Generation, i.e., the Iron Man
because you
match,
get some really cool characters out of the New Generation era.
Birth of Stone Cold Steve Austin.
What?
Birth of The Rock. The Rock was born technically in the New Generation. He was at the end. The Die Rocky Die was Rocky Maivia. That's the end of the New Generation. By the way, Rocky Maivia, the perfect New Generation character too, if you think about it. Then he became The Rock, which was damn near perfect Attitude Era.
Yeah.
But think about it. He defined an era. Him being the definition of New Generation is what got the crowd to hate him, which makes him, when he turns heel, into The Rock, who is the definition of the Attitude Era, if you ask me. Like, if you think about it, you can point to him, like his promos and everything were. And I'm not saying that he was a bigger star than Steve Austin, because he wasn't. But if you think of what Attitude stood for, I think in a nutshell, it's The Rock. I don't even think it's DX. DX was basically NWO light. Yeah, I said it.
Yeah, DX was tough because of with everything that happened to Shawn and his first retirement and everything. It makes it tough. It would have been interesting to see what happens with DX if Shawn didn't have to retire there in '98. But
Ruthless Aggression, return to Shawn Michaels too. Terrible Trunks his return, but return to Shawn Michaels. I'll be the first to say it. He is not truly WrestleMania until that second run. Not saying he didn't have good WrestleMania matches in the first run, but that second run is what really made him Mr. WrestleMania. That second run where he's in there with Jericho,
Chris Jericho,
Angle,
huge
Cena,
Ruthless Aggression feud.
Cena. Like there was some of those, of course, the two last bangers with the Undertaker. Like that's what made him Mr. WrestleMania. Was that second run? Not saying, like I said, obviously I said the Iron Man match a bunch of times. I thought it was a great match, but if you go. Him and Diesel was even good for what it was at WrestleMania 10, not 10, 11, the forgotten WrestleMania. That was right in your neck of the woods, wasn't it? You know, the great state of Connecticut.
In Hartford. Yeah. Didn't Brett work a no holds barred with Bob Backlund or something like that?
It was the end of his and Backlund's feud, which was not remembered. What else? It was of course the main event, LT versus Bam Bam Bigelow. That was the main event. Anyways, I digress.
Anyway.
But that was the real end of that was the real that was one of the last, well, that 12 was the last PG, or not PG, New Generation. Because 13 was pretty much the first Attitude Era. Because that's where you got the Chicago street fight that opened the show, and Brett and Stone Cold, the famous I Quit match. Yeah. That was WrestleMania 13. So WrestleMania 13 was really the kickoff one of the kickoffs, in my opinion, for the Attitude.
Yeah, it's right around that time. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Hopefully you all enjoyed. Hopefully you enjoyed it, whether you watched us live or you're watching us on replay. Leave those comments. Make sure you're dropping it in there. And of course, make sure you head over, once again, QR code above me, to fanlightsZone.com. Check out all the comic reviews and all the blogs and everything that are going up as we grow. We would love you to grow with us. So go ahead and make sure you get over to fanlightsZone.com. And then, of course, I'm going to play this graphic at the end anyways, but follow us on the social medias. And, of course, hit that subscribe, notify the bell icon for notifications, and the thumbs up for those likes on YouTube. It's greatly appreciated. It's help us grow, help us wrestle down the algorithm. Next week, though, Sammy, we will not be live for 607 TWS because it is, of course, Christmas. So for anybody who celebrates Christmas, Merry Christmas. For anybody who
Merry
celebrates
Christmas.
Hanukkah, which is going on right now, Happy Hanukkah. Of course, Happy Kwanzaa, all the wonderful holidays. Make sure you're spending some time with your families and most importantly, being safe about it going into the new year. Of course, we will not be live. However, I will be getting with Sammy and we will be putting out a World's End pre-show. That's right. The first ever 607 TWS era pre-show extravaganza will be going down for AEW World's End. That will be coming out probably Friday night. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We'll get together and do it. It's shaping up to be a hell of a card. Main evented by a four-way dance for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So we cannot wait to talk about that. So in lieu of next week's show, you will still get some great action from the FLZ wrestling team here on 607 TWS. But enjoy the holidays. Enjoy spending time with yours, your family, your friends, and everybody. And once again, I can't stress enough, please be safe in this holiday season so you can enjoy some more pro wrestling and some more talking with us. But signing off for this week, for myself, for Miss Sammy, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and most importantly, later wrestling fans.